Last week, I recommended Andy Borregales to you guys as a kicker streamer rostered in just 5% of sleeper leagues. Went on to score 16 fantasy points. That's what we like to do here, give you kickers, streamers, rankings to help you win a fantasy football title. We got to get to week 13 on a Thanksgiving week. Let's get into it right now. What's going on, folks? My name is Michael Hoff, part of the Face Off Sports Network. And yes, this is the Week 13 edition, if you could believe it. Kickers, streamers, rankings, all that fun stuff. We're going to give you tiers, going to tell you who you should pick up, who's available, going to help you guys navigate this. I will say the one benefit here is Week 13. We do not have any buys this week. After that, we got Week 14. That's the last slate of buys that we have. And then it's on to the races, winning fantasy football titles. But recapping our streamers from last week, from week 12. Again, I mentioned it. Andy Borregales, rostered in 5% of sleeper leagues of the New England Patriots, did score 16 points. He is flying under the fantasy football radar. Cairo Santos scored 7 points for the Bears. We'll take that. We want a little bit more, but we'll take it. A little bit underwhelming was a bit of our dart throw, but was Daniel Carlson. We can't just boast up the good takes. We got to take some of these bad takes. Daniel Carlson went on to score just 4 points against the Cleveland Browns. But be that as it may, hopefully you won your week based on our recommendations, based on our rankings. I don't know why I say ours because they're mine, but who the hell cares? Part of the Face of Sports Network. Why do kickers matter? I love to do this before we get into the streamers and the rankings, everything else. I will tell you before we talk about why kickers matter. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything, fire it into the comments. I take great pride in trying to answer as many, if not all, that I can. And I appreciate your support. And if you leave a comment, just hit the like button. Helps me out immensely. You guys don't have any idea how much it helps me. Just trying to keep the lights on here. But why do kickers matter? So let's go to this. We talked about him already. We mentioned him 3 times already, but I only mentioned him because right now, currently headed into Monday Night Football, he is the top scoring kicker on the week. Andy Borregales scored 16 fantasy points, and in half-point formats, that was more than Bijan Robinson and Puka Nacua scored. So you're talking about guys that you're drafting in the first round, and not all the time, but there are times where a kicker will score more points than that player. So this is why they matter. This is why, if they're in your league, I get it. You guys want to have your jokes. You want to say, kicker's lame, yada, 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 be the cool guy in school, give the kicker a wedgie. But if they count towards your final score, if they count towards you winning a fantasy football championship or not, if they count towards you clinching a playoff berth or not, they better matter to you. And if they don't matter to you, then I don't know, find a league without kickers. But if you got kickers, I'm going to help you. Let's get into the streamers right now. Again, this is consisting of players rostered in 35% or less of sleeper leagues. The first kicker we're going to go with is Mr. Will Lutz of the Denver Broncos, coming off of the bye week, going to be at the Washington Commanders on Sunday Night Football, being rostered in 14% of leagues. Listen, I expect Lutz to pick up right where he left off. And I don't mean that he was lighting the world on fire, but I mean in terms of just before the bye week. While it was his only 10-point game of the season, Lutz led all kickers in week 11 with 18 points. Listen, I'm not telling you Will Lutz is going to be a mainstay here in these top 12 rankings, but I do like this matchup against the Commanders. The Commanders are also coming off of a bye week, but the Commanders have one of 5 teams to allow over 100 points to the kicking position in terms of fantasy points. Additionally, over their last 6 games, the Commanders have allowed an average of 12 points per game to the position. So we will take that. And I like Will Lutz in this matchup. I think we see, listen, again, Will Lutz is more of he's a streamer. There's another guy I'm going to get to next who could be potentially more of a guy you might want to hang on to for a couple of weeks. But Will Lutz, pick him up this week, like him a lot. The next guy we'll get into, yeah, we're returning back to him. We're going to the well once again. It's Andy Borregales. As if I haven't mentioned his, maybe we should do a drinking game. Take a shot every time you hear Borregales on this show right now. But Andy Borregales, of the New England Patriots going up against the New York Football Giants. It's going to be on Monday Night Football. It's going to be in New England, rostered in 17% of leagues. I expect that to go up a smidgen, even with no teams on bye. He was last week's hero, of course, but he's back in our top 12, and he is back as a streamer. While I'm not going to tell you that there's another 16-point week coming here, I do like the matchup against the Giants. The Giants have been kind of boomer bust in terms of going up against kickers. They have 2 games with 15 points allowed, five games with 10 points allowed, but they do have 7 games with fewer than 10 points allowed. So this is why, despite allowing over 100 points to kickers in terms of fantasy points, they are allowing less than 10 points on a per game basis to kickers. But all that being said, the Giants have allowed 12 points in 2 out of the last 4 games, and Borregales has had 9 points in 3 out of the last 5 games. So I love Borregales again. Let's jump back into the fray yet again. Love him as a top 12 kicker again this week. Let's get to our last streamer, and our last streamer is a name that I rarely ever mention on this program, and it's going to be Mr. Zane Gonzalez of the Atlanta Falcons, rostered in just 2% of leagues, going to be at the New York Jets. Again, I don't know how much Zane's been mentioned on this show. I don't know if I ever put him in my top 12. He hasn't been around that long. The kicker situation in Atlanta has fluctuated quite a bit, but Gonzalez has had back-to-back weeks with 10 points scored. Now he's going up against the Jets, and the Jets are allowing a league-high 10.9 points per game. Let me get my words out there. 10.9 points on a per game basis right now. That's what the Jets are allowing to the kicking position. That would include 6 games with 10 or more points allowed, which is tied for the second most in the league. While the forecast could change, there is some rain in the forecast, but they're classifying it as being drizzle. I'm sorry if I'm not concerned about drizzle. Yeah, so we'll see how the forecast goes throughout the week. But for now, I do like Zane Gonzalez. Again, only rostered in 2% of leagues. If you're streaming the kicking position, I do like him in this spot. So as we get ready to get into our rankings, we're going to go through our tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. If at any point you want to say, hey, I got a question, fire it into the comments. I take great pride in answering as many as I can. And as long as you're leaving a comment, just feel free to hit the like button. Helps us out immensely. Tier 1, we're going back with it. Tyler Snoopaloop of the Baltimore Ravens is our number 1 ranked kicker. And yes, do not adjust your monitors. This is the second week in a row in which I am telling you that Loop is the number 1 ranked kicker on the week. Listen, while he didn't finish in that spot this past weekend, he did score double-digit points. He did have 11 fantasy points. So he did deliver on some sort of level. Given his recent performances and the opponent, I like Loop again in this spot being our top-ranked kicker. These recent performances would include more than 10 points in 4 out of the last 5 games. And with that, it should come as little to no surprise that during this stretch, Loop has been the number 1 kicker out of these last 5 games. So we love to see that. I did mention the opponent earlier, and they are also part of the reason why I'm recommending that you go with Tyler Snoopaloop yet again. The Bengals, by the way, this is going to be on Thanksgiving night. The Bengals have given up a lot of points to kickers. 5 of the 7 games they have allowed 10 or more points to kickers have come in the last 6 weeks. So points are coming in bunches. In terms of recently, as if they're not giving up enough to every single other position. The Bengals are also giving up a lot of points to kickers. So we love to see that. Delving into it a little bit further, there is some wind in the forecast for Thanksgiving night, but honestly, if you guys have been following me here, there's been times where there's wind, and it's not the end of the world. It's not crazy. Blowing the flags and, God forbid, and, hide the women and children. No. So I think it's going to be fine. I love Tyler Loop. If you want to go with my number 2 ranked kicker, we're going to go with Jason Myers of the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks will be going up against the Minnesota Vikings. Myers is leading the league in points. And it's by a decent margin. He's leading the league in terms of fantasy points by a kicker by 14 points. And he is our number 2 kicker, number 2 ranked kicker. There you go. Got my words out. That took me long enough on the week. Myers is also one of 5 kickers with at least 3 games with 15 or more points scored. There's not a lot of kickers so far in fantasy who have done that. And as if that's not enough, in the 4 games since the Seattle Seahawks bye, Myers is scoring 12 points on a per game basis. So he's giving you 12 points on a per game basis over this last 4 game stretch. We love to see it. The weather looks good in Seattle, and the Vikings are tied in allowing the 4th most points to kickers. So we got that going for us as well. The Vikings are allowing points to kickers at a high rate since their bye week, too. A lot of since the bye week stuff here, and I love to do the recency stuff. So in their first 5 games of this season, the Vikings were allowing 8 points on a per game basis. Following the week 6 bye, that average has now jumped up from 8 points to 11 points, in which the Vikings have been allowing to opposing kickers. So, I mean, we're already getting Jason Myers already kicking the ball enough. Now we're giving a proper opponent. So I love this here. Listen, Myers is going to continue to be a plug and play. The next kicker that I'm going to mention on this list, rounding out tier 1, is going to be Chase McLaughlin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I get it. Some of you guys might be moaning and groaning because McLaughlin hasn't given you some great weeks over the past few weeks. I've been asked about dropping Brandon Aubrey. I've been asked about dropping Chase McLaughlin. But if you remember the show last week, if you guys watched last week, I did tell you that there are better matchups on the horizon for Chase McLaughlin. That starts now. That starts here this week against the Cardinals. Again, I ranked them 10th last week for a reason. Didn't love the opponent. The good stretch starts now. The Cardinals are one of 2 teams allowing over 10 points on a per game basis to the kicking position in terms of fantasy points. They also have had just 1 game with less than 5 points allowed to kickers, and that was all the way back in week 2. So they're still allowing a decent number of points. And if you want to look more recently, the Cardinals have allowed 14 points on a per game basis over the last 3 weeks. 14 points to a kicker on a per game basis. We'll sign up for that right now. I mean, I don't have them higher just because I love the other 2 guys a lot, but I felt important to get McLaughlin here back into tier 1. This is the week when things start to turn around for McLaughlin. The playoff stretch is also good for him. So that rounds out our tier 1. Let's get into tier 2. Tier 2, we're going to go with another player returning from bye, another player from the AFC West, along with Mr. Will Lutz. But that is Cameron Dicker, the kicker of the Los Angeles Chargers, going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. Listen, he is currently tied with Brandon Aubrey in terms of points scored for fantasy by the kicking position, while Dicker has had only 8 points in his previous game against the Raiders. That was in Las Vegas. When Dicker is kicking at home, he is averaging 10 points per game, not to mention 3 of his 5 games with 10-plus points have come in Los Angeles. It's also worth mentioning that Dicker was on bye. So I know I already mentioned that, but I mentioned it because of this. During that time, his rostered percentage dropped to 79%. So if you're watching this video right now, Cameron Dicker, the kicker, might be available in your league. And if he is available, I think he's a guy you can pick up and you can start him the rest of the way. So love Cameron Dicker this week. He is the first guy in our tier 2. The second guy in our tier 2, being our 5th ranked kicker, is going to be, feels like almost everybody's favorite, Kayami Fairbairn. Everybody loves him. The Texans are going to be at the Indianapolis Colts this week. After missing 2 games due to injury, Fairbairn returned and scored 11 points against the Buffalo Bills. And why is that important? It's important because, I mean, the Bills weren't exactly the best matchup in the world. And the Colts are another opponent like that. I mean, the Bills before week 12 were allowing the 9th fewest points to kickers. Now the Colts come in, again, another one that on paper doesn't look good. They're allowing the 7th fewest points, but if you look closer, the Colts have allowed 10 plus points in 2 out of the last 3 weeks. So there is hope on the horizon here in terms of kickers. So, and also the Texans were tied for a while with the Chicago Bears in terms of field goal attempts on a per game basis. It is now official. The Texans stand alone as the number 1 team in the NFL with 2.9 field goal attempts on a per game basis. So we always talk about this with every single other position, whether it's quarterbacks rushing, whether it's running backs in their touches and wide receivers in their touches, and same with tight ends. It shouldn't be any different with kickers. If they're getting opportunity, then it matters. So Miami Fairbairn is going to continue to get these opportunities cannot be ignored. Continue to ride with Fairbairn. Let's get with the last kicker in our tier two, and that's going to be Brandon Aubrey. Brandon Aubrey is going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. This is going to be on Thanksgiving. Obviously, this will be in Dallas, as always on Thanksgiving. Last week we dropped Brandon Aubrey down to our third ranked kicker. This week we're dropping him down here to six, and at the back end of our tier two. This is the thing. The name value is there, but guys, like we just got to look at this. I mean, the name value is there, but the 10-point games have not been there. And a lot of you have stressed that to me on X. I mean, Aubrey started the season with back-to-back games with double-digit points. Since that time, he's only had one game with 10 or more points, and his points per game on the season are 9.5. But since week 3, remember he had the 2 games with 10 or more points in week 1, week 2. Since week 3 and on, that points per game has dropped 1.4. So that's not a good drop either. We don't love that. The Chiefs have allowed 26 points over the last 2 games to kickers, but in the 3 weeks prior, they allowed a total of just 5 points. I mean, if you have Brandon Aubrey, yes, you're still putting him out there. But is there a reason to be concerned? Yes, absolutely. There are better matchups ahead. There are some kickers I like more rest of the season. A lot of these guys I mentioned at the top of the show. If you have a question, if you're somebody who rosters Brandon Aubrey, feel free to ask below. I will answer you. But Brandon Aubrey for me this week, he is ranked 6th. Better weeks are ahead, but it just got to read the writing on the wall without reading the name of the paper. So let's get to tier 3 as we get ready to round third, head for home on some of this stuff. Our number 7th ranked kicker is going to be Cam Little of the Jacksonville Jaguars, going to be at the Tennessee Titans. While Cam Little isn't as exciting as some of the other kickers in fantasy, he has continued to stay in the mix towards the top in terms of fantasy points scored. Let me do that. I clicked too fast. I'm a very fast guy. Talk fast, click fast. Here we go. Headed into Monday Night Football, he has the 4th most points in Week 12 with 13 points scored. And 3 of his 4 games with 10 or more points have come in the last 4 weeks. So those points have been coming lately. We like that. Those 3 games consisted of at least 13 points scored. So not only is he scoring double-digit points, he's scoring at least 13 points during that stretch. Little's going to take that momentum up against the Tennessee Titans, like I mentioned. The Tennessee Titans has allowed 12 points per game over their last 3 matchups. And this game will be played in Tennessee. And the Titans tend to allow more points to kickers when they're at home. 4 of the 6 games in which the Titans have allowed double-digit points to the kicking position has come when the Titans are at home. So we love that as well. I think this is a nice little spot for Cam Little here. Number 8 and number 9. Number 8 is Andy Borregales. Again, I'm going to timestamp this stuff. So if you go to my streamer portion of this, you can then take a look at Andy Borregales, what I had to say about him. And also Will Lutz will be in there as well in the streamers. He's my 9th ranked kicker. So you guys can take a look at that. Let's get to tier 4 as we round this sucker out. I always find this funny when I started doing these kicker videos. I was like, how the hell am I going to do 20 minutes? Now I'm trying to rush to get not farther than 20 minutes, but that's a programming thing. Tier 4, Jake Bates, 10th ranked kicker. Here's the thing. The Lions are going up against the Green Bay Packers on Thanksgiving. Obviously, this game is in Detroit, as we all know, by Thanksgiving tradition. I could see Jake Bates outperforming this current ranking. I'll say that, but I'm being mindful of the opponent. The Packers are allowing the 11th fewest points to the position, and they're allowing 8 points per game. And that's being inflated by when they allowed 20 points to Chris Boswell, who we'll get to in the second, back in week 8. In Bates' last matchup against the Packers, he only had 7 points scored. And also, over the Packers' last 3 games, they're only allowing 1 field goal attempt per game. So you're not getting a ton of opportunity here. Again, could I see Bates outperforming this? Sure, of course. But right now, in the here and now, as I'm putting these rankings and tiers out to you guys, don't love this spot for Bates. I will make sure to get updated rankings out there for Thanksgiving morning, which you can follow me on X at the FF Realist. And also if you guys have any comments, if you guys want any updates here, just comment here and I'll let you know. But right now, we're going to go with Jake Bates at 10. Number 11, we are going to go with Chris Boswell of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are going up against the Buffalo Bills. Listen, this is another one. Rankings can be adjusted, but here's why Boswell is ranked where he is. I do not love the weather situation that is coming to us in Pittsburgh for this weekend. At this point, there's a combination of rain and freezing rain in the forecast for Sunday. That's during the early hours on Sunday, but it sounds like the rain is supposed to continue in the afternoon. Now, I'll say this: as the week goes on, the weather could move. They could come earlier. It could go later. We can see, so some of this might change, and then the rankings will reflect that. But right now, I mean, outside of that, even with 4 points scored in week 12, it's hard to poke a ton of holes in Boswell's game. He's done exceptional. In the 6 weeks before that, Boswell was averaging 11 points on a per game basis. So I'm not burying him at rankings, but I'm just kind of giving you guys a PSA in terms of worrying about the weather situation here. So, I mean, the rankings can change. I'll just tell you to stay tuned. But for now, we got Chris Boswell at 11. The number 12 player here, again, I'll have a time stamped. Zane Gonzalez of the Atlanta Falcons going up against the New York Jets on Sunday. Again, this will be in the streamers, so I do like him. I will close it out with this. Some of you guys always like to ask me, what about this guy? What about that guy? And they always tend to be like 12th or 13th. I will tell you, 12th or 13th, 13th or 14th, since I'm giving you top 12. My 13th ranked kicker on the week is Harrison Butker. My 14th ranked kicker is Evan McPherson. So those guys are just on the outside looking in. But those are the streamers and the rankings for week 13. Hope you guys enjoy this. If you have any questions or comments, fire it in, please. I will definitely answer it. If you ask a question, just give it a like. Helps me out immensely. Most importantly, have a safe, happy, healthy holiday. Get full stomachs. Have a strong drink. Win a fantasy football game. And